Unit 1. Recording 1. 1.
What's your full name, please?
It's Merhab, Merhab.
2.
Hey, great to see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. And it's really good to be here.
3.
And could you tell me your full address?
It's Flat 4, Arlington Mansions, Surrey.
4.
So, which part of Argentina do you come from?
From near Buenos Aires. Actually, I only arrived here from Sao Paulo a few hours ago.
5.
Really? How was your flight?
Oh, it was fine, thanks.
6.
So, did you have a good journey?
Yes, I did actually, but it was long.
7.
What's your marital status?
Single.
8.
Have you got any family?
Just my parents.
9.
And are your parents okay?
Mum is, but Dad isn't very well, I'm afraid.
Unit 1. Recording 2. Example.
Is this your first visit to London?
Yes, actually, it is.
1.
What's your postcode, please?
2.
Where exactly do you live?
3.
How's your job going?
4.
Do you speak any other languages apart from English?
No, I don't.
5.
Do all your family speak English?
6.
Could you tell me your date of birth?
7.
Did you have a nice holiday?
Yes, thanks, I did.
8.
Have you got any brothers and sisters?
No, I haven't.
Unit 1. Recording 3. 1.
What's the English word for this?
2.
How do you pronounce this word?
3.
How do you spell your name?
4.
Which page are we on?
5.
Could you explain that again, please?
6.
Could you say that again, please?
7.
What's today's homework?
8.
Could you write it on the board, please?
Unit 1. Recording 4. 1.
Choose a space and write the name of your oldest relative.
2.
Choose a space and write the name of a neighbour or a colleague.
3.
Choose a space and write the number of cousins you've got.
4.
Choose a space and write yes if you've got any nieces and nephews, and no if you haven't.
5.
Choose a space and write the name of an old school friend who you don't see anymore.
6.
Choose a space and write down the number of aunts and uncles you've got.
7.
Choose a space and write yes if you've got a mother-in-law, and no if you haven't.
8.
Choose a space and write the name of someone who is an acquaintance, but not really a friend.
Unit 1, Recording 5.
Hi, Jess. So, have you got any photos of your birthday party?
Hi, Anne. Yeah, just a second. Where are we? Oh, yeah. Here's me with some friends. That's my best friend, Lydia. I think you've met her, haven't you?
Yeah, I know Lydia, of course. And who are the two guys?
Tom and Saliba. They're old friends of mine too. Saliba lives in the same street as me. I've known him for years. He's going out with Lydia at the moment, actually.
Oh, very nice. And what's Lydia doing these days?
She's working in a DIY shop at the moment, which is really boring, apparently. But she's decided now that she wants to be a social worker, so she's applying for lots of courses and things.
Oh, good for her.
And here's another one. My little sister and my grandpa.
Wow! Is that Isabel? She's getting so big. I remember her when she was really small. She's pulling a face.
Oh, she always pulls faces in photos. I don't know why.
So, how old's your grandfather?
He's 81 now, I think. He's getting quite old.
He looks well for his age, doesn't he?
Yeah, he and my granny are still really active. They travel all over the world and go out all the time. They're amazing, really.
That's brilliant.
And here's one of me with Luxmi, an old school friend of mine.
I think you've told me about her before. She's training to be a doctor, isn't she?
Yeah, I think she's in her 2nd or 3rd year. And here's some more of my family.
Oh, that's a nice photo. Is that your brother, Joe? The one who's wearing sunglasses?
Yeah, that's my big brother.
And what's he doing nowadays?
He's away at university. Well, he's home for the holidays at the moment, obviously.
So, where's he studying?
Manchester. He's living in a student house with 4 other guys. He really likes it there.
Oh, that's good. And who are the others in the picture?
That's my dad in the middle, my cousin Harriet, and Andy, my uncle.
Oh, it looks like a really nice party.
Yeah, it was great. Shame you couldn't come.
Unit 1, Recording 6. 1.
I spend way too much time travelling. My regular daily commute begins at about 7 in the morning. I leave my house, then walk to the tube station. From there, I take the tube for 6 stops. Then I hop on the train for about 10 minutes. Then I take another tube for 1 stop. And then finally, I take another train for about 20 minutes. And then it's a 2-minute walk to work. The whole journey takes about an hour and a half, I would say. And that's on a good day. On a bad day, it could take up to 3 hours. And it's really, really boring.
2.
I'm one of those people who just don't think there are enough hours in the day. I'm on the go the whole day long, from the moment I get up in the morning to when I roll into bed at night. I have a really busy job where I'm on my feet all day. I usually end up working through my lunch break because there's so much to go on. And I would finish up work at about 5-6 o'clock in the evening. I normally would then meet up with friends in the evening, have them over for dinner. And I spend a lot of time talking with my family over Skype or some friends on the phone, though I'd probably like to spend more of my time doing that. As I said before, there just isn't enough time.
3.
I spend quite a lot of time looking after my daughter. Obviously, when my wife's there, we share looking after her and playing with her and things. But my wife goes out to work 3 or 4 nights a week. So when I get in from work, she goes out to work and I finish off the dinner, look after my daughter, play with her, have dinner with her, give her a bath, brush her teeth, read her a couple of stories, put her to bed, sing some songs. I really enjoy it. It's a great opportunity to kind of have one-to-one time with my daughter.
4.
Oh, I can be so unproductive when I'm supposed to be writing an essay or doing work of some kind. I'll go on the internet to do some research for whatever topic I need to write about. But then I start looking at other things that I'm more interested in. I don't know, maybe news about celebrities, or I might be downloading music. And after several hours, I still haven't started researching my essay.
5.
I'd like to have more time to walk my dog. At the weekends, I have lots of time and I take her for a lovely long walk. In the week, it's always a bit of a rush and I never get a chance to really enjoy it properly, so I wish I had more time for that.
Unit 2, Recording 1. 1.
Last English lesson, I was wearing jeans and a white shirt. I think.
2.
I can clearly remember walking on my own for the first time. I was about 13 months old, and I was walking with my parents. They were holding my hands. Suddenly, my favorite aunt appeared at the door, and I walked towards her, on my own.
3.
At that time, I was watching football on TV, probably.
4.
Her name was Miss Bivvy, and she was quite young, about 25, I think, and she had very dark hair and dark eyes, and she always wore a lot of makeup on her eyes, I remember.
5.
While I was shopping in town, I saw the news on the TVs in a shop window. I went into the shop and asked the assistant what was happening. Everyone in the shop was talking about it. They were really shocked.
Unit 2, Recording 2.
The most romantic story I know is the way my grandparents met. They were travelling from London to Newcastle by train, and in those days it was a long journey, so after a while they started talking. They soon discovered that they had a lot in common. Both of them were from Newcastle, but both of them were training to be journalists in London, and both of them were going home to see their families for Christmas. The weather was terrible. Apparently it was snowing really badly all the way to Newcastle. At one point, the train stopped for quite a long time, but it obviously wasn't a problem because somehow during the journey they fell in love and decided to get married. By the time they reached Newcastle, they were engaged. The wedding took place a few weeks later, and amazingly, they are still happily married 50 years later.
Unit 2, Recording 3.
Started. Discovered. Stopped. Decided. Reached.
Unit 2, Recording 4.
Arrived. Asked. Invited. Remembered. Expected. Studied. Visited. Offered. Hoped. Watched. Worked. Noticed. Travelled.
Unit 2, Recording 5.
Basically, my upbringing was fairly easygoing, I guess. I mean, my parents used to have rules. We had to do our homework and we had to go to bed at a certain time. And we would get into trouble if we were rude, or if me and my sister were mean to each other. They used to punish us sometimes if we did something really naughty. They would stop our pocket money or send us to bed early. But I don't remember a lot of punishments.
My parents were very strict. They didn't believe in giving us freedom and allowing us to choose things for ourselves. We didn't used to go to friends' houses to play after school, and they didn't allow sleepovers because we had to study. Even when I was 18, I couldn't go out in the evenings with my friends because of exams.
We had quite a lot of freedom. I mean, generally, if we wanted to do things, we could. After school, we used to play in the street with our friends. Football or skateboarding or something. Or we'd go inside and play games on the computer. When I was about 11, I used to love going into town with my friends and hanging out. I thought I was really cool, and my parents were fine with that. We had a few fights about things when I was a teenager. I got my ear pierced without telling them when I was about 15, and my mum didn't like that. There were one or two things like that, but generally it was cool. I could go out with my friends when I wanted to, and they didn't mind if I stayed out late.
We didn't choose which activities we did. My parents decided. My mum decided that my brother and I should both learn the piano, so that's what we did. We used to practice for 2 hours every day after school, and more at the weekend. Occasionally I argued with my mum about piano practice, and then my dad would really tell me off, and I used to feel very ashamed. In Korean culture, you should always show respect to your parents.
Schoolwork was quite important to my mum and dad. They would get angry if we got into trouble at school. But they also encouraged us a lot, and they didn't often criticise us. Mum always used to say, "Just do your best. That's all you can do."
My parents were especially strict about schoolwork. They expected us to get A's in every exam and every piece of work. I remember once my brother didn't get a very good mark in a test, and my dad got really, really angry. My mum bought some books, and he had to do hours and hours of extra homework until he improved. They did praise us, but you had to be really excellent at something before they praised you. You really had to work to get their praise. It sounds a bit hard, but we accepted it because the other Korean parents we knew were the same with their kids, so it was normal for us. I'm not sure if I will bring my children up the same way, but I think, actually, my parents have given me a lot of confidence in myself. I know that if I work really hard, I can do anything, and I think that's a very good lesson in life.
Unit 2, Recording 6. 1.
I remember when I was about 8 or 9, I had a pet. It was my first pet, actually, and it was a little budgie called Ollie. I named her Ollie because it was the year of the Olympics. I can't remember which year it was. But this bird was really unusual because quite quickly she became very tame. And I used to come home from school and I'd pick her up off wherever she was perching, and I'd take her upstairs and she'd sit on the side of the bed while I did my homework, and then she'd jump onto my pen while I was writing, or she'd jump onto my hair and chew it. Sometimes during dinner time, she'd actually jump onto the plate and skid around in the sauce, which wasn't very hygienic. But I don't actually know what happened to her, because one day we all got so used to just her being around the house that one day my mother came in with some washing. The back door was open and she just flew off, and we never found her again. It's a bit sad, really.
2.
Right. This is a story of something that happened to me when I was, I think, about 11 or 12. So I was actually quite old, which makes it more embarrassing. I was in the garden at my parents' house, and I think they were having a party because there were lots of people there, family members and their friends. And I had this swing on a cherry tree in the garden that my dad had made me when I was quite little. And on this day, I jumped onto the swing, as I would do any other day. And the branch that the swing was attached to fell clean off the tree, and the swing hit me in the head, and I blacked out. Very briefly. I was fine, but it was so embarrassing in front of lots of people that I know and who still remember it today.
3.
Right, so it was a time when I was really frightened, and it was about 2 years ago when I was on holiday in Sicily, and one afternoon we decided to hire a boat to go and sail around the coast. It started off quite nicely. The sun was shining, and we were sunbathing. But then we decided to drop the anchor and stay still for a little while. But I didn't know that you shouldn't use the engine when the anchor is dropped. So somehow the rope got tangled up in the engine, and the engine stopped working. So we were stuck. The boat started floating out towards the sea, and also at the same time the weather changed. It became very windy, and the sea got choppy, and we were quite scared. So when we looked in the boat, the radio didn't work, so we couldn't ask for any help. We thought we were going to be stuck there all night because we had no way of contacting anybody. There was water coming in the boat, we were cold, it was windy, and we didn't know what to do. It was desperation, really. But in the end, it was okay because my girlfriend managed to find the telephone number of the people who gave us the boat. So after about half an hour, maybe, they came and rescued us. But at the time, it was we were very worried and very scared.
Unit 3, Recording 1. Part 1. 1.
A recent survey found that the citizens of Denmark were the happiest in the world. The least happy people in the world were the citizens of Togo in Africa.
2. According to a recent report from the OECD, the hardest working people in the world are the Mexicans. They do about 10 hours of paid and unpaid work every day. In terms of paid work, Koreans come top of the list with long working hours and an average of just 3 days holiday a year.
3.
Indians go to the cinema more than 3 billion times a year. That's far more than any other country. Malaysia, by contrast, has the lowest rate of cinema attendance in the world.
4.
A recent survey found that Germans discuss the subject of politics more than any other nationality in the world. 29% of Germans said that they discuss politics frequently, compared to, for example, 13% of British people.
5.
According to a recent survey of 30,000 people in 15 countries, the funniest people in the world are the Americans. People who took part in the survey mentioned American TV programs such as The Simpsons and Friends as the reason for their choice.
Part 2. 6.
10 million people visit New York every year, but Paris is the most populous city in the world for tourists. Over 15 million people visit every year.
7.
The largest country in South America is, of course, Brazil. It covers about half of South America. The second largest is Argentina, and the third largest is Peru.
8.
Chicago is the furthest north. although it is only slightly further north than New York. San Francisco is the furthest south.
9.
Canada has by far the longest coastline in the world. It's over 200,000 kilometers long. That's almost 4 times as long as Indonesia's coastline, which is the second longest in the world.
10.
The city with the most skyscrapers in the world is not actually New York, as most people think. It's Hong Kong. It has 1,218 buildings that are over 100 metres tall. New York, which is second on the list, has 562.
Unit 3, Recording 2. 1.
Write the name of one of the hottest places in the world.
2.
Write the name of one of the coldest places in the world.
3.
Write the name of the second biggest city in your country.
4.
Write the name of one of the most beautiful places in your country.
5.
Write the name of one of the oldest parts of your town.
6.
Write the name of one of the busiest streets in your town.
7.
Write the name of one of the ugliest buildings in your town.
8.
Write the name of the nicest beach you have been to.
Unit 3, Recording 3. 1.
The UK is by far the largest of the 3 countries.
2.
France is slightly more crowded than the UK.
3.
Ireland is much more popular with tourists than the UK.
4.
Dublin has by far the smallest population of the 3 capital cities.
5.
Heathrow International Airport is a lot busier than Dublin International Airport.
6.
Charles de Gaulle is the busiest of the 3 airports.
Unit 3, Recording 4. Example.
The Amazon rainforest is the largest forest in the world.
1. The Cannes Film Festival is one of the biggest film festivals in the world, and probably the most important.
2.
Buckingham Palace is the home to the Queen of England and one of the most popular tourist attractions in London.
3. Sydney Harbour is the home to some of the most famous sites in Australia, including Sydney Opera House and Sydney Harbour Bridge.
4.
Lake Ontario is the smallest of the Great Lakes in North America, although it is still the 14th biggest lake in the world.
5.
The Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, Russia, is one of the largest and oldest museums in the world.
6.
The Canary Islands are off the coast of Africa, but are part of Spain. They are one of the most popular tourist destinations in Europe.
7.
The Blue Mosque in Istanbul is probably the most famous mosque in the world.
8.
The Iguazu Falls are on the border of Brazil and Argentina. They are the second largest waterfalls in the world.
9.
The Suez Canal in Egypt links the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. It is one of the busiest canals in the world. Unit 3, Recording 5. Pan.
现在的上海和以前完全不同。25年以前，这里有很多的工厂和田野。
The city used to be completely different from the way it is now. 25 years ago, a lot of it was farmland and factories. Today, there are skyscrapers and shopping malls. It is constantly changing. The streets were much dirtier in the past, and you would often see chickens walking down the middle of the road. These days, that's hard to imagine. Everything is so clean and modern. Even the old part of the city is a bit smarter than before, although the historic buildings haven't changed. Not everything is better, though. A lot of older people still play mahjong on the pavement, but younger people are not as helpful as they were before. They're too busy.
Jasmine.
在我小的时候，一切事物都缺少色彩。人们的衣服。When I was a child, everything was less colorful. People's clothes, the shops, everything. Actually, we didn't have many shops then. But today, everyone says that Shanghai is a shopping paradise. And you can find restaurants from all over the world. It's much more cosmopolitan. We didn't have our metro then. People used to travel everywhere by bicycle. Of course, nowadays traffic and pollution are worse than they were. I guess Shanghai is similar to a lot of big cities in that way. But it's a really cool, fun place for young people. I think I'm very lucky compared to my mum's generation.
Unit 3, Recording 6. 1.
Times Square in the 1950s looks very similar to Times Square now.
2.
The adverts then were exactly the same as modern ones.
3.
The buildings then were completely different from buildings now.
4.
In the 1950s, all the cars were very similar to each other.
5.
The taxis then were a bit different from the taxis now.
6.
The traffic then was a lot worse than the traffic now.
7.
The pollution then wasn't as bad as the pollution now.
8.
In the 1950s, there were a lot fewer adverts than now.
Unit 3, Recording 7. 1.
The restaurants are better than before.
2.
The streets are a lot busier than they were.
3.
The clothes are different from before.
4.
Public transport is not as good as it was.
5.
The historic buildings are the same as before.
6.
The streets were similar to the way they are now.
Unit 3, Recording 8. 1.
Better than.
2.
A lot busier than.
3.
Different from.
4.
Not as good as.
5.
The same as.
6.
Similar to.
Unit 3, Recording 9. 1.
It's a very romantic and historic city, but some parts are very touristy. It's famous for its buildings and views, especially the castle, the churches, and the bridges over the river.
2.
The city centre is very smart and modern, with a lot of skyscrapers and big apartment blocks. But some parts of the city can be quite dangerous. There are also green hilly areas with incredibly expensive houses and shopping malls full of designer shops. Some of the most famous people in the world live here.
3. It's an extremely colourful city and is the home of the world's biggest film industry. Parts of the city are very modern and smart. Other parts are poor and very dirty. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the world.
Unit 3, Recording 10. Part 1.
So, Tom, you used to live in London, didn't you?
Yeah, I was there for 5 years.
Because I'm going to be there for about a week, and I've never been before. So I want some advice about what to do and where to go. I mean, obviously, I'm planning to visit all the big tourist attractions like Big Ben and Buckingham Palace and the Tower of London, but I want to know about places that Londoners go to. You know, where do people who live there go if they want to eat out or go shopping or just go out for the day? Where do you recommend?
Unit 3, Recording 11. Part 2.
It's hard to know where to start. London's great for parks, museums, markets, and just street life, really. There are lots of great places to just walk about and have a coffee and, just enjoy the atmosphere. I guess Covent Garden's the most famous place for that sort of thing, but personally, I much prefer the South Bank. The area next to the River Thames on the south side. There are lots of theatres and concert halls on the South Bank, but there are also cafes and shops, and you can walk up and down the river and look for books at the book stalls and just hang out. It's a great place to watch people. I definitely recommend going there.
Oh, cool. It sounds great. Oh, what about markets? I love markets.
There are loads of great markets in London. But personally, I'd recommend Brick Lane. That was my favorite.
Oh, I haven't heard of that. What's it like?
Well, Brick Lane is the traditional Bangladeshi area of East London, so it's famous for its curries and ethnic food. London's a great place to eat food from all over the world, and it's not too expensive in Brick Lane.
Good.
But there's a lot more there, too. It's a really arty area. There are a lot of art students and fashion students living and studying there. You can buy cool vintage stuff and individually designed clothes. Things you won't find anywhere else. And it's good for clubs and nightlife, too. You'll love it.
Sounds great. And what about parks? London's famous for its parks, right?
Yeah, there are loads. Hyde Park's the biggest park in central London, and it's the most famous. But if you want to have a relaxing day away from the city centre, you should go to Richmond Park. That was my favourite park when I lived there.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's the biggest park in London, and you can almost forget you're in a big city. I mean, at the weekend, there are lots of people jogging and cycling and walking with their families and having picnics and stuff. But you can get away from everyone if you want to. And there are deer. Lots of deer. You should definitely go.
Oh, I love deer. I have to go there. Oh, what about museums? I'm not really a museum person, but I'd like to go to one or two while I'm there. Which ones do you recommend?
Do you read detective stories? Sherlock Holmes? There's a Sherlock Holmes museum.
Really? I love Sherlock Holmes stories. Where's the museum?
It's on Baker Street in central London. In the books, Sherlock Holmes lived on Baker Street, and the museum tries to show what a London house was like in the 19th century. It's small, but really fascinating.
Okay, I am definitely going there. Well, thanks a lot. That's been great. I really learned a lot.
Unit 4, Recording 1.
Some people are so famous that it's hard to believe they have other skills. But this week in our Fabulous Facts slot, we're focusing on famous people and their hidden talents.
Barack Obama, for example, is not only one of the most famous politicians in the world, he has also published several books, including a book for children called Of Thee I Sing, A Letter to My Daughters. He wrote the book in 2008 for his two daughters, as you might guess from the title.
Obama isn't the only politician to appear in bookshops. Winston Churchill, the famous British Prime Minister, was also an author and an artist. Over the course of his life, he wrote over 70 books and painted more than 500 pictures. In 1953, he won the Nobel Prize for Literature, the only world leader who has ever done this.
And what about modern celebrities? Do they have the same hidden talents? Well, some of them do. Pop singer Shakira, for example, doesn't just produce international hit records. She has learnt to speak 6 languages. Wow! And since she became successful in 1995, she has also founded schools for poor children all over Colombia, her native country, and has raised tens of millions of pounds for charity. What a woman!
And Brad Pitt is not just Hollywood's leading actor. He's also an architect. He has apparently been interested in architecture since he was young and has studied the subject for many years. He has even designed a restaurant and an apartment building.
Even royals these days have surprising talents. Kate Middleton, the Duchess of Cambridge, is a keen sportswoman, and before she was engaged to Prince William, she trained to row across the English Channel to France, a total of 34 kilometres, as part of an all-woman team. Unfortunately, she couldn't take part in the end. It was too dangerous because so many photographers were planning to follow her boat. What a shame.
Unit 4, Recording 2. 1.
What's the matter?
I've lost my mobile. Have you seen it anywhere?
I can't believe you've lost it again. Why don't you keep it in your pocket?
OK, so I've lost it again. Have you seen it?
Have you looked on the coffee table? It's usually there.
Yes, I have. It's not there. I've looked. Hang on. Oh, it was in my pocket all the time.
2.
I didn't recognise you for a minute. You look so different. You've changed your hair. It's really nice. I like it.
Oh, thanks. And you look really well too. You've lost weight, haven't you?
Well, yes, a bit. I've joined a gym.
3.
Tony, is Jang still here?
She was here a minute ago. Perhaps she's just gone out for a minute.
If you're looking for Jang, she's gone home. She left about 10 minutes ago.
Oh no, I've missed her. Has she locked her office?
I think she has.
4.
Miss,
Yes?
we finished the test. Can we go now?
Not before the others have finished. Adam, how are you getting on? Have you finished?
Sorry, I haven't finished yet. Can I have another 5 minutes?
Yes, OK.
5.
Let me see. Pierre, have you met Karima? Karima Safar?
Yes, I think we have. We met at the conference last year, didn't we?
That's right. I remember. Nice to see you again.
You too.
Karima has joined our London office, so you'll see a lot of each other.
Unit 4, Recording 3. 1.
What's the matter?
I've lost my mobile. Have you seen it anywhere?
I can't believe you've lost it again. Why don't you keep it in your pocket?
OK, so I've lost it again. Have you seen it?
Have you looked on the coffee table? It's usually there.
Yes, I have. It's not there. I've looked.
hang on. Oh, it was in my pocket all the time.
Unit 4, Recording 4.
OK, so I was born in Ankara in 1990 and I spent my childhood there. I started school, primary school, in 1996. And it was at primary school, when I was 8, that I started learning English. I remember my teacher was really strict in class, but we all loved her. I've been learning English ever since because my primary school teacher taught me to love the language, I guess. And then, when I was 12, we moved, my family and I, to Istanbul. So that was in 2002. I really didn't want to move, I remember. So my dad had to buy me a guitar when we moved, as a present. And I started having guitar lessons. So what's next? I left high school and started university in 2008, studying business. I was there for 4 years. And in 2011, I met Selim, and we've been going out together since then. And do you want to know if I'm in love? I'm not telling anyone. It's a secret. And after I left university in 2012, I started working for my uncle's import-export business. It's a really nice job, and I get to use my business skills, so that's great. What else can I tell you about my life? Well, all those guitar lessons weren't a waste of time, because now I'm in a band. It's called Yedi Kızlar. It means 7 girls in Turkish. And we're called that because it's obvious, really. There are 7 of us in the band, and we're all girls. Actually, I've been in 3 different bands, but this one is definitely the best. Anyway, Yedi Kızlar started in 2010, and we've played about 20 gigs, and we've got a few fans. I think we've got about 500 followers on Facebook. And what else? Well, I'd really like to get a flat of my own. It's really crowded in my parents' flat. I've been looking for ages, for something I like and that I can afford, just to rent. And today, I think maybe I found the right one. Finally! I'm so excited.
Unit 4, Recording 5. Example.
For about a month.
1,
A couple of minutes ago.
2,
Since April.
3,
For a while.
4,
A long time ago.
5.
Since 8 o'clock.
Unit 4, Recording 6. 1,
He passed his driving test about a year ago.
2,
We haven't had a holiday since October.
3,
They got married a few weeks ago.
4,
They've been married for ages.
5,
She hasn't been well for a long time.
6,
He's been working here since about 2009.
Unit 4, Recording 7. 1,
How long have you been studying with your present teacher?
2,
How long were you at primary school?
3,
How long have you known your oldest friend?
4,
How long have you had your present hairstyle?
5.
How long have you had your shoes?
6.
How long have you been doing this exercise?
Unit 4, Recording 8. 1.
I'd like to nominate the English actress Emma Watson. Emma became famous playing the role of Hermione in the Harry Potter films. She started acting in those films when she was just 11 years old and continued for the next 10 years. She's won many awards for her acting skills, and she's appeared on the cover of magazines all over the world. She's exceptionally talented and clever. But the reason I really admire her is because she hasn't let fame and money change her. While she was playing Hermione, she continued to work hard at her studies, and she refused to leave school and become a full-time actress. When she finished the Harry Potter films in 2009, she decided to go to university. She went to the famous Brown University in the US. It's inspiring to find a celebrity who still believes in the value of education.
Unit 4, Recording 9. 2.
My nomination for the Inspiration Award is the Argentine footballer Lionel Messi. He's the most talented footballer of his generation, but he's still charming and dedicated. When Messi was 11, he was diagnosed with an illness. The treatment cost $900 a month. Messi's family weren't rich, so Messi left home to join FC Barcelona, and the club paid for his treatment. This was a good deal for Barcelona because Messi went on to score hundreds of goals for the club. Messi has done a lot for children in his home country. He founded a charity which helps children get the education and health care that they need. I think he's an excellent role model for boys and young men everywhere because he shows that you don't have to be selfish and egotistical to be successful.
Unit 4, Recording 10. 3.
I'd like to nominate American Mark Zuckerberg for the Inspiration Award. He's the founder and president of Facebook. I want to nominate him because he's changed the way we live and how we communicate. And he's done all this while he's still a young adult. Zuckerberg's also done a lot for education. In 2010, he gave $100 million to schools in Newark in the USA. He's very rich, so it's probably not a lot of money for him, but it still shows that he cares about other people. He's an excellent role model for young people everywhere because he wanted to change the world and he succeeded.
Unit 4, Recording 11. 4.
My nomination for the Inspiration Award is Aung San Suu Kyi. She's a politician and leader in Burma. She won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1991, but she's spent most of her life since then under house arrest. What's amazing about Aung San Suu Kyi is her courage and her strength. She's got strong principles and she inspires respect. I think she deserves to win because she has led and inspired people for more than 20 years, even when she has been unable to walk outside of her front door.
Unit 4, Recording 12. 5.
My choice for the Inspiration Award is Jamie Foxx. Jamie is an American actor, singer, songwriter, comedian, and radio show presenter. He's won many awards for his acting, including an Oscar for the film Ray, and his music has gone to the top of the charts in lots of different countries. He's one of only 4 artists to have won an Oscar and had a #1 album in the USA. What's amazing about Jamie Foxx is the number of things that he's good at. Apart from all his performing skills, he's also a talented sportsman. I think he deserves to win because he is simply incredibly talented.
Unit 5, Recording 1.
Experience. Fail. Imagine. Improve. Know. Produce. Succeed.
Unit 5, Recording 2.
Distract. Distraction. Distracting. Experience. Experience. Experienced. Fail. Failure. Imagine. Imagination. Imaginative. Improve. Improvement. Know. Knowledge. Knowledgeable. Produce. Production. Productive. Profit. Profit. Profitable. Succeed. Success. Successful.
Unit 5, Recording 3.
It's never easy to make career decisions, even at the best of times. So with the current economic problems we're having, how are people around the world coping? We asked 3 job hunters on 3 different continents to record a short audio diary about the decisions they've made and send it to us. First up is Gavin from Ireland.
Hi, I'm Gavin. I've been looking for a job for a few months now, since I graduated from university with a degree in marketing. And yes, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. But the thing that's helped me the most is the internet. I don't mean job websites, although I check those every day. What I mean is how I use the internet to promote myself. So, I've set up my own website with some examples of what I can do. I really want to work in advertising, so I've got some examples of adverts I've created on my website. Well, you know, my own ideas. And, well, I update my blog at least twice a week. And most of all, I use social networking sites like Twitter to tell everyone that I'm looking for work. I've told all my online friends what I'm good at. You know, I'm creative and hard-working. And I've told them what kind of job I'm looking for. So hopefully, if they read my tweets and my blog, they'll help to find me a job. So, yeah, there are a lot of people in my situation right now, so it's important to, you know, stand out.
So that was Gavin, who's using the internet and social media to help him find the right job. But sometimes you need to do more than tell people how good you are. You need to show them. Molly from Canada has done just that.
My name's Molly. I finished my degree in design about 18 months ago, and I'm still looking for the right job. Design is like a lot of professions, really, in that you can't get a job unless you've got experience. And you can't get experience unless you've got a job. It's a catch-22 situation. So in the end, what I did was I wrote to several companies and I offered to work for free for a few months. It's crazy, really, but a lot of people do it these days. I mean, you have to get experience somehow or other. Anyway, one of the companies got in touch with me and asked me to come in. I'm working for that company part-time at the moment as a graphic designer, which is what I really want to do. I've been doing that for 2 months, and it's going really well. They seem to like me, and they like what I'm doing, so to be honest, I'm hoping that they'll offer me a permanent job soon. But if not, then at least I have some experience on my CV.
So Molly has been working for free, but she's hoping to get a paid job in the near future. For some people, however, not having a job is a chance to take a break from their career and do something completely different. Let's hear from Delmar, who is 42 and from South Africa.
Here in the north of Botswana, it's one of the last places in the world that's completely unspoilt by tourism. There's just the Okavango River, miles and miles of wilderness, and sometimes a small village. No shops, no restaurants. I'm working as a volunteer for a wildlife conservation project here. Until about 6 months ago, I was working in a well-paid, stressful job in banking. I'd been there for 5 years, and then one day my boss told me that the bank was merging with another bank, and my job didn't exist anymore. A bit of a shock, to be honest. Anyway, I started to look for another job, but my heart wasn't really in it. In the end, I decided to take a career break and do something I've always wanted to do, and that's spend time in the African wilderness. I'll be here for a few months until I work out what I want to do with my career. I think this little adventure will help me to decide what to do, and it will teach me some new skills. I receive a small salary, just pocket money really, but I'm learning a lot about myself and what I'm good at, and when I get back, I'll be ready to look for a job again.
And that last audio diary was from Delmar in Botswana in Africa. With me now, I have Melanie, our careers advisor, and she's going to take your calls. So if you'd like to speak to Melanie.
Unit 5, Recording 4.
The winner of the show will come and work for my company as an executive, and of course they won't have any experience of our business, so we'll have to train them in whatever job they do. So what I'm really looking for is not experience, because they probably won't have the right experience. I'm looking for potential. First of all, obviously, I'm looking for someone with good business sense. In my experience, people either have business sense or they don't. It's not something you can teach people at college. There are a lot of very educated people with a lot of qualifications who don't have business sense. I'm not against people with a good education. Many people in business these days have university degrees. But I made a success of my businesses without any education. So I feel very sympathetic to people if they haven't had many opportunities in life. If they can prove to me that they can run a business successfully, then I'll give them a chance, even if they don't have any qualifications. The winner of this show is going to be a manager, a boss. So I'm looking for a leader. OK, it's good to be able to work in a team, but I'm really looking for someone who can make decisions, take responsibility and get things done. That's what I want more than anything. Someone who actually does things. People these days talk a lot about communication skills. And yes, communication skills are very important. But I'm not interested in someone just because they're a good talker. Talking doesn't make things happen. And I don't want someone who hides behind other people. I want someone who's assertive, who says what they think, who's clear thinking and direct. Those are the qualities I look for in my executives.
Unit 5, Recording 5.
So let's talk about Mark first. Obviously, he's a lovely guy. Everyone likes him. He works really well in a team.
But it's not just that. I think he has leadership skills too. He takes responsibility for things. He achieves things.
Yes, I agree with you there. You can see his experience as an army officer, but he doesn't always make very good decisions. That's a problem, I think. He's not a natural businessman. I don't think he's really got great business sense.
Yeah, he talks a lot, but sometimes it's not that clear what he's trying to say. It's as if sometimes he doesn't really know what he wants to say.
He's very hard-working and motivated, though. I do like Mark.
Maybe we should move on and come back to him later. What about Melody? What do you make of her? She's certainly got a strong personality.
Yes, she can be quite aggressive. She gets into a lot of arguments. She's not very good in a team, to my mind.
Yes, although I think the others basically like her. She's funny and she's very honest. And she's good at motivating people. To me, she's more a leader than a team person.
I think that's right. I like the fact that she gets things done. She's a doer. She makes decisions and then she gets on and does it. Maybe that's because she's used to running her own business.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Freddie.
He can certainly talk.
Yes, you can see that he went to private school and a top university. He's certainly very fluent and charming and very intelligent, you've got to admit.
Yeah, but to me, he's all talk. He sounds really good, very clever, very well educated. But actually, he doesn't like making decisions. He talks and talks, but what does he actually decide? What does he do?
He lets other people do the hard work. I've noticed that. It's always other people who do the work, not Freddie.
Yes, but I still think he's a very bright, talented guy. He's got potential, I think.
Let's move on to Nikita. Now, Nikita's just the opposite. She's very quiet, very serious, but she really gets things done in her quiet way.
Yeah, and I think she's proved that she's a businesswoman if she can raise $500,000 for charity.
Yes, Nikita is very focused and determined. She really takes responsibility and makes decisions. She's quiet, but actually she can be a leader.
Yeah, I just worry that she won't inspire other people very much. She's not a great communicator.
I suppose that's true.
Unit 5, Recording 6.
This is a tough one in the end. I mean, two candidates are clearly stronger than the others. The two women, Nikita and Melody. Freddie and Mark both have strengths, but they both have important weaknesses too. For me, Mark is a great guy, and I really wish him luck, but he's not a natural businessman. And that's the number one consideration, so sorry, Mark, but no. Freddie appears on the surface to be more of a businessman, but to me, in the end, he's a weaker candidate than Mark, because he isn't prepared to work hard and he won't make tough decisions. He's all talk, and that's not enough in business. So, Freddie was always the weakest candidate for me. But between Melody and Nikita, that's really difficult. They've both got proven business skills. They're both ambitious and hard-working. Nikita has already won awards and has all the education and background to be successful. I don't doubt that she will be successful, with or without winning this show. So, I'm going to go for Melody. She hasn't had the start in life that Nikita or Freddie have, but I think she's really got the right qualities to be a great businesswoman. Yeah. Melody it is.
Unit 6, Recording 1.
When Tamara Rabi met Adriana Scott at a local McDonald's restaurant, their lives changed forever. I didn't know what to say except hi. I was just so shocked. It was like seeing myself, says Adriana. They were both students at neighboring universities in Long Island, New York, and they had grown up only 30 kilometers apart. They shared a birthday, they were exactly the same height, and both loved hip-hop. But the most important thing they shared was the same Mexican mother. Both girls grew up knowing that their mother had given them up for adoption when they were born, but they had no idea that they had an identical twin. Then Justin Latore, a friend of Adriana's, went to Tamara's 20th birthday party. When he walked in and saw Tamara, he couldn't believe his eyes. I was just shocked. She looked so much like Adriana, says Justin. Then it got clearer. They had to be sisters. In fact, Tamara had already noticed that strangers on her university campus often smiled and said hello, clearly mistaking her for someone else. Following the birthday, Justin put the two girls in touch, and they arranged the McDonald's meeting by email. As she came towards me, she was walking like me, talking like me, says Tamara. We have the same mannerisms, the same interests, and got the same grades at school, adds Adriana. The girls even discovered that as children, they had often had the same nightmare of a really loud noise followed by a very quiet one. They had another sad factor in common. Both of their adoptive fathers had died a few years before they met. Now the twins are finishing their studies, and they meet often. I feel she's my sister, but our relationship right now is more like friends, says Tamara. She's optimistic and excited that their futures will be together. We will always have each other. We don't have any other brothers and sisters. We'll grow old together.
Unit 6, Recording 2. 1.
She lived in Paris.
2.
I'd left my umbrella at home.
3.
I left my umbrella at home.
4.
They sold all the tickets.
5.
My uncle had reserved a table.
6.
She'd lived in Paris.
7.
They'd sold all the tickets.
8.
My uncle reserved a table.
Unit 6, Recording 3.
A few years ago, I had an argument with my girlfriend. She said that I was obsessed by work. As I was driving home, I turned on the radio, and the first thing I heard were the lyrics. She said it wasn't working. She told me she was leaving. When I got home, there was a voicemail from my girlfriend. She said that she didn't want to see me anymore. And that was the last I heard from her.
My favorite coincidence story is about Mark Twain, the American author. He was born in 1835, 2 weeks after Halley's Comet appeared. In his autobiography, Twain said that he had come in with the comet and he expected to go out with it. Halley's Comet comes back every 76 years. Sure enough, Twain died in 1910, the day after the comet reappeared.
A few months ago, I was thinking about an old friend from university. His name was Chang-Xu. He always said that we would get married one day. The next day, I checked my email as usual. To my amazement, there was an email from Chang-Xu. He asked me if I was still living in Beijing, and he told me what he was doing. He said he'd just had a dream about me and had found my email address online. We've met up a couple of times since then. Who knows? Perhaps he was right after all.
My friend and I from Thomas Abney Secondary School in South London did a gap year together when we were 18. We went to Australia and found a job in a small insurance office in Melbourne. It was really boring work, but quite well paid. One day, the manager said he was hiring another worker to help us. The next day, a guy of about 20 walked into the office. He looked familiar. We asked him where he was from, and he told us he was from South London. Then we asked him which school he'd gone to, and he said Thomas Abney. We were so surprised. He'd been in the class 2 years above us.
Unit 6, Recording 4. 1.
Do you often tell jokes? Can you tell any jokes in English?
2.
Do you have an elder brother or sister? Did he or she tell you what to do as a child?
3.
Can you say hello, goodbye and thank you in 4 different languages?
4.
If you hated your friend's hairstyle and she asked your opinion, would you tell the truth?
5.
Can you tell me something about your last holiday?
6.
In your family, do you usually say a prayer before meals?
7.
Did your teachers in primary school tell you off a lot?
8.
If you had a minor car accident and it was your fault, would you say sorry to the other driver?
9.
Can you tell the difference between British and American English?
10.
If one of your classmates was cheating in a test, would you say something to the teacher?
11.
Do you think it's always wrong to tell lies? When is it acceptable?
12.
If a homeless person asks you for money, do you usually say yes or no?
Unit 6, Recording 5. Part 1.
My aunt will be here soon, Mr. Nuttall, said a self-confident young lady of 15. Until then, I'm afraid, you have me. Frampton Nuttall tried to say something polite. Privately, he was wondering whether this visit to total strangers would really help to cure his bad nerves, as his sister had hoped. I know what will happen, his sister had said, as he was leaving for his rest cure in the country. You will never meet or speak to anyone, and your nerves will be worse than ever. So, I'm going to give you letters of introduction to all the people I know there. Do you know many people round here? Asked the niece after a silence. Hardly anyone, said Frampton. Then you know nothing about my aunt and her great tragedy, continued the self-confident young lady. Her tragedy? Asked Frampton. Yes. You may wonder why we keep the windows open in October, she said, pointing towards the large French windows that opened onto the garden. It's quite warm for the time of year, but has the window got anything to do with the tragedy? Asked Frampton. Out through that window, exactly 3 years ago today, my aunt's husband and her 2 younger brothers went off for a day's shooting. They never came back. All 3 sank in a terrible bog. We never found their bodies. That was the worst thing. Here, the girl's voice lost its confidence. Poor aunt thinks that they will come back some day. She believes they will walk in through that door with their little brown dog just as they used to. That's why we have the door open every evening. Poor dear aunt. She has often told me how they went out. Her husband was carrying his white coat over his arm, and her brother Ronnie was singing. Do you know, sometimes on a quiet evening like this, I have the strangest feeling that they will walk in through that window. Frampton felt relieved when at last her aunt came into the room. "I hope Vera has been amusing you," she said. "She's been very interesting," said Frampton. "I hope you don't mind the open window," said Mrs. Sappleton. "My husband and brothers will be home soon from shooting, and they always come in this way."
Unit 6, Recording 6. Part 2.
She continued to chat happily about shooting. To Frampton, it was all absolutely horrible. Attempting to change the subject, he told them about his illness. "The doctors have told me to have complete rest, with no excitement at all," explained Frampton. "Really?" said Mrs. Sappleton, but she was not paying attention. Her eyes were staring past him to the open window and garden beyond. Suddenly, she jumped up. "Here they are at last," she said. "Just in time for tea." Frampton shivered and looked at the niece with sympathy. The young girl was staring out through the window with a look of pure horror in her eyes. In a cold shock of fear, Frampton turned round and looked in the same direction. In the twilight, 3 figures were walking across the garden towards the window. They were all carrying guns under their arms, and one of them also had a white coat over his shoulders. A tired brown dog was walking close to them. As the figures came nearer to the house, a young voice began to sing. Frampton grabbed his hat wildly and ran out through the hall door, across the front garden and through the front gate. Outside in the road, he almost knocked a man off his bicycle in his terrible panic. "Here we are, my dear," said the man carrying the white coat as he came in through the window. "Who was that who ran out as we came in?" "A very strange man, a Mr. Nuttall," said Mrs. Sappleton. "He could only talk about his illnesses, and then he ran off without saying goodbye when you arrived. It was as if he had seen a ghost." "I expect it was the dog," said the niece calmly. "He told me he had a terrible fear of dogs. A pack of wild dogs once chased him on the banks of the river Ganges in India, and he hid all night with the dogs snarling just above him. It's enough to make anyone suffer with their nerves." Telling stories at short notice was her speciality.
Unit 7, Recording 1. 1.
Many people assume that the United States is the movie capital of the world, and indeed around 900 movies are made there every year, mostly, of course, in Hollywood. But the country where the most films are made is India. More than 1,000 Bollywood films are made every year.
2.
The title of the world's first 3D movie was The Power of Love. It was first shown at the Ambassador Hotel Movie Theater in Los Angeles on September 27, 1922. The film was silent, and it has now been lost.
3.
Between 2002 and 2011, 8 Harry Potter films were made. and in all 8 films the role of Harry Potter was played by Daniel Radcliffe. Radcliffe was only 11 years old when he was chosen for the role. The author of the books, J.K. Rowling, chose him herself. She thought he was the perfect Harry.
4.
The Academy of Motion Picture Awards, better known as the Oscars, are broadcast to more than 200 countries worldwide every year. The first Oscars ceremony took place in Hollywood, Los Angeles, in 1929, and it has been held there ever since.
5.
This famous Chinese actor was born Chan Chong-sang in 1954 in Hong Kong, but he changed his name to Fong Shi-lung in the late 90s. He began acting in the 1960s, but moved to Australia in the 1970s and worked on a construction site. Other workers gave him the nickname Little Jack, which soon became Jackie. Jackie Chan has since made more than 100 films, mostly martial arts films and comedies.
6.
The epic American science fiction film Avatar, directed by the Canadian James Cameron, is set in the 22nd century on a fictional planet in the Alpha Centauri star system, named Pandora. A sequel is being filmed at the moment, and it is believed that more sequels will be made in the future.
7.
The most filmed author in any language is William Shakespeare. More than 400 film versions of his plays have been made, more than any other writer.
Unit 7, Recording 2.
Astonished. Boiling. Delighted. Excellent. Exhausted. Freezing. Furious. Hilarious. Ridiculous. Terrible.
Unit 7, Recording 3. 1.
One of my favourite movies is Lord of the Rings, which is based on the book written by Tolkien. Classic trilogy and fantastic read. I read the book and, well, it was recommended by a friend, and I absolutely loved the book. It was absolutely amazing. And then when the films came out, I thought that they would probably be a little bit disappointing because the book was just so good. I mean, there's no way you can put that, into a film. But the films were actually, they did the book justice. And the cinematography was amazing. The performances were great. I mean, the casting was great because the characters really did justice to the characters in the book. And I love the fact that it was all filmed in New Zealand. I've never seen a better movie, I don't think.
2.
A TV show that I really like at the moment is Modern Family. It's about 4 different families that are quite modern. Whereas in the past, people used to think that you would have a mom, a dad, and 2 children. In Modern Family, you've got one family, for instance, where the dad is about 50 or 60 maybe, and his wife is in her early 30s, and she's got a son as well from a previous marriage. So that's quite modern. The other family is a typical family, but they're all a bit crazy. You've got mom, dad, 2 girls, and a boy, and obviously the siblings go mad all the time. The series is really funny because they say and do things that you normally think about doing or saying, but in real life, obviously, you can't do it. I remember one episode, for instance, where the dad cancelled Christmas because one of his children lied, and I've always wanted to do that. I would recommend everyone to watch it because it's a really good show.
3.
Oh, I saw a television programme last week, Saturday night, really main peak time television programme. And it was called The X Factor, and I just hated it. I really don't like singing competitions on television. The people on the programme were just not very good singers. The judges weren't judging them for singing, they were judging the way they looked, and they were judging their image. I think really the judges were thinking about who would sell the most records. So it was very much about image and not about singing. I think if we're going to have a singing competition, then the contestants should just be judged on singing and not the way they look or how their image will sell lots of records.
4.
I want to tell you about the first time I went to a ballet. It was called Alice in Wonderland, and it's based on the book by Lewis Carroll. I went with my friend who, it was her birthday, so we went to see it in in Covent Garden in the Royal Opera House in London. Absolutely adored it. It was, I thought it was just really, really amazing. The set and the design of the stage were just terrific. Particularly liked the Queen of Hearts. She was an absolutely brilliant character, really, really funny. Which I think maybe that was the best part about it, was that I was at a ballet, which was all about the dance, but the whole audience was laughing. It was a real comedy show as well. I'd recommend it to anybody.
Unit 8, Recording 1. Picture A. 1.
Can I have the bill, please?
2.
Excuse me, can I get past, please?
3.
Could you pass me the water, please?
Picture B. 4.
Is it all right if I sit here?
5.
Do you mind if I leave a bit early today?
6.
Would you mind watching my bag while I go to the toilet?
Unit 8, Recording 2. 1.
Can I have the bill, please?
Certainly, sir.
2.
Excuse me, can I get past, please?
Sure.
3.
Could you pass me the water, please?
Here you are.
4.
Is it all right if I sit here?
Sure, go ahead.
5.
Do you mind if I leave a bit early today?
I'm afraid I need you here at the moment.
6.
Would you mind watching my bag while I go to the toilet?
Of course not.
Unit 8, Recording 3. 1.
Can I have the bill, please?
2.
Excuse me, can I get past, please?
3.
Could you pass me the water, please?
4.
Is it all right if I sit here?
5.
Do you mind if I leave a bit early today?
Unit 8, Recording 4. A.
Come on, shall we go on the roller coaster?
Are you joking? I'm not going to risk my life on that.
Don't worry, I'll look after you. Nothing can go wrong.
Everything can go wrong. Look, I'll go on the big wheel with you, but not the roller coaster.
But this is the best one. You'll love it. Oh, come on. Shall I help you?
Oh, all right. I'll give it a go. But I can't believe I'm doing this.
There, we're in. Don't worry, I'll hold your hand.
Oh yeah, that's really going to help.
B.
So I said, no, you can't. And I walked out.
No, really? Oh, no. Is that the time? I really need to go.
Shall we have a quick coffee?
Oh, I'd love to, but I really should go. I'm going to try and go to the gym tomorrow morning. My New Year's resolution.
Oh, yeah? Well, I'll give you a lift if you like. I'm parked just over there.
I think I'll get the bus. I'm going to do some shopping on the way home.
Shall I take you to the supermarket?
That's really kind, but there's no need. The bus is fine.
OK. I'll give you a call next week.
OK. Speak to you then. Bye.
Unit 8, Recording 5. A.
Now, I must say, I hate people being late. I always try to arrive exactly on time myself. I think it's very rude to be late. Don't you, Florence?
My friends are quite often late. Personally, I think you should arrive within an hour of the time that you were invited. But some of my friends are much later than that. But I think the most important thing is to stay in touch and let the person know if you're going to be late. Just send a text or whatever. Well, then it's not such a problem, hopefully.
Well, I must say it's a problem for me.
I'll bear that in mind when I'm meeting you next time, Gran. I'll make sure I'm not late. I don't want to get into trouble.
B.
When we meet, we generally hug each other. I mean, it depends. If it's one of my close female friends, then we kiss each other. But if it's someone you don't know so well, but someone who's still, a friend, you hug each other.
Boys too?
Sure. Why not?
When I was young, people would just say hello or shake hands if they hadn't seen each other for a long time. But now there's a lot more kissing, it seems to me. Most people kiss each other on the cheek. Once, usually. Though some people kiss on both cheeks. It's all a bit confusing, really. Of course, men of my age never kiss each other. If anything, they shake hands. They would definitely never hug or kiss each other. I can't imagine your grandpa kissing his friends.
C.
I think on the first date, the guy pays, generally speaking. But I think the woman should definitely offer to pay. After that, it kind of depends who's got the most money, don't you think? I mean, if you're both poor students, you probably share the bill. But if one person's got a job and the other one hasn't, then I think the person with money should pay. Or at least they should pay more often.
In my day, the man always paid. People expected it. A man would be embarrassed if he didn't pay in a restaurant. But then, of course, it's a very long time since I've been on a date. So what do I know?
D.
Now, this is something I must say I feel very strongly about. To me, it's the height of rudeness to have a conversation on your mobile phone while you're out with other people. It's just bad manners. You should give all your attention to the people you are with. I think you should definitely switch your mobile phone off. But of course, I'm probably old-fashioned.
Personally, if I'm with other people in a restaurant or something, I always switch my phone to vibrate. Otherwise, you have phones ringing all night and it's really annoying. But yeah, I answer my calls and answer my text messages, well, discreetly.
Do you? Oh.
I mean, I do agree with you in a way. I've got 1 or 2 friends who just text all evening long, and we all tease them about how boring they are. But I don't think anyone's seriously offended, really. It's just the way it is these days, Gran.
E.
Well, of course, I was always taught that you should send a handwritten note, and you should send it the very next day. But I suppose that's all very old-fashioned now.
Not many people of my age send handwritten notes, I must say, but I would always post something on someone's Facebook wall. You know, thanks a lot for last night. We do still have manners, you know.
Of course. It's just all so different these days.
Unit 8, Recording 6. Alexander.
In my country, people usually shake hands when they greet each other, not only the first time they meet, or if they haven't seen each other for a long time, but every day. When you enter a room, it's normal to shake hands with everyone in the room.
May.
When you first start going out with someone, I think you should always act fairly cool. I mean, you shouldn't answer their texts immediately, and things like that, it's uncool. On the other hand, if people wait too long, that's a sign they're not interested. I mean, if a guy doesn't answer your text after 2 days, then you should forget about him and move on.
Lee Kwan.
When you go out here, people expect you to dress smartly. The way you dress is important. Your clothes can't be dirty or crumpled or old, and it's important to be fashionable, especially for women, with nice makeup and jewelry. It's what people expect.
Simone.
If you've only just started seeing someone, don't request to be their friend on Facebook. I mean, if you've only been on a few dates, you don't necessarily want to get involved with all their friends, do you? You should definitely wait and decide if you want to be in a relationship with each other before you accept each other as friends.
Rosa.
In Peru, if you go visit your friends, you should never arrive on time. No one arrives on time. It's perfectly okay to arrive an hour late. Nobody cares. It's expected. If you really want people to be punctual, you have to say hora inglesa, which means English time.
Ramon.
People tend to go out late in Spain, really late. Not just young people, but everyone. I mean, I often don't meet my friends until 11 o'clock. If you want to eat in a restaurant, it's perfectly normal to eat at that time. And if you want to go dancing or go to bars, in Madrid you can stay up until 5, 6, 7 in the morning. There are still lots of people out at that time.
Khalid.
Generally speaking, people my age eat with their family in the evening. My mother and my sisters cook it, and we all eat together. It's not acceptable to go on dates in the evening with a girlfriend, unless you're engaged first. After dinner, I normally go for a drive with my friends, or we go to the shopping mall and hang out with our friends.
Unit 9, Recording 1. 1.
They told me it was the very latest model, but I've had nothing but trouble with it over the last week. It's driving me mad, to be honest, because I need to use it, every day.
So what's the problem exactly?
Well, it just crashes all the time without warning. The screen just freezes. I've no idea why. And I have to restart it, and I keep losing my work, losing things I've done. It's so frustrating.
That's not good, is it? I suppose you've tried reinstalling the software?
Yeah, but it didn't make any difference.
You should take it back to the shop then. Definitely.
2.
And you should all be aware of a few basic safety measures. Firstly, if some paper gets stuck or the machine breaks down at any time, don't just leave it and hope someone else will fix it. Switch the machine off here at the wall. There's no need to unplug it. Just switch it off here, and you open it here by holding down this button here. Now, it can get extremely hot inside, especially if you're making a large number of copies, so do take care you don't touch anything. Oh, and by the way, if you ever see smoke coming out of it, don't tip.
3. Is that new?
Yeah, I just got it the other day. Nice, isn't it? I'm just choosing a ringtone.
Can I have a look?
Yeah, it's so easy to use. You just touch the icons with your finger.
Cool.
Then you just scroll down the menu with your finger like this.
And so does that icon mean that you need to recharge the battery?
Yeah, that's right. The battery is a bit low at the moment.
4.
Oh dear. Is this new? I've never seen one like this before.
Don't worry, Gran. It's switched on and the film's in. When you're ready to watch it, you just press the OK button here.
Oh yes, I see. Well, that's easy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really easy. And if you want to pause it for any reason, then just press this button here.
I'll do my best, but if it doesn't work for me, you'll be in the other room, won't you?
Yes, Gran, I'll be in the other room.
Unit 9, Recording 2.
Recycling bin. Energy drink. Bodyguard. Mobile phone. Washing machine. Personal trainer. Instruction manual. Digital camera. Internet addict. Personal computer.
Unit 9, Recording 3. Fadil.
There are a few things that we always tell our customers to bring with them. For example, we tell people to bring a couple of packs of wet wipes. We travel in 4x4s, so we bring plenty of water with us. But that's for drinking, not for washing. Wet wipes are really useful for staying clean. Another thing we recommend that you bring is your swimming gear. Obviously, a lot of people wonder why you need your swimming gear in the desert. The reason is that we always try to stop at an oasis when we're on a trip. That's really an unforgettable experience. People who don't bring their swimming gear always regret it. What else? It's good to bring several plastic bags. They're useful for organising things, and they stop sand getting everywhere. And you need to bring a hat and plenty of sunscreen, of course, at least factor 15. And, of course, a lot of people forget that the desert is freezing cold at night, so you need to bring some warm clothes.
Abigail.
I've been going climbing in the Rockies since I was a child, so I'm really aware of the dangers, particularly the way the weather can change really quickly. I see far too many people out climbing in just a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. They haven't packed enough warm clothes to deal with a change in the weather. And I always advise people to take some insect repellent and a bit of food, even if they're only going for a few hours. If the weather changes and they get stuck, they might really need both of them. High-energy food is best. Things like raisins and peanuts. You can add a little bit of your favorite chocolate, too. Too many people these days rely on a handheld GPS navigator. Now, most GPS navigators are great. It's definitely a good idea to take one. They tell you exactly where you are, but they can also break or run out of battery, so you need a backup, a map, and a compass. And don't forget a plastic bag. You don't want your map to get wet.
Joel.
I'm a real festival lover, you know. I just love the atmosphere and the music and the social scene, and I've learned over the past couple of years what I need to bring. Number 1 on my list is a tent and a sleeping bag. They're your home, so it's worth spending a bit of money on a good tent and a warm sleeping bag. Then you need a torch with a few spare batteries. When you're trying to find your tent in the dark, it's really essential. What else? Well, with the British weather, you really need a pair of wellies. Often people bring too much food with them, and they always regret it, because they spend a lot of time carrying it around, and actually there are plenty of places to buy food. To be honest, these days you can buy most of the stuff you need at the festival. So really, when you think about it, all you need is enough money.
Unit 10, Recording 1. 1.
71%.
2.
2030.
3.
892,000 square meters.
4.
8.2 billion.
5.
55,680,000 kilometers.
6.
300,000 kilometers per second.
7.
199,859.
8.
17%.
9.
127 million.
10.
Minus 89 degrees Celsius.
Unit 10, Recording 2. 1.
71% of the Earth's surface is covered in water.
2.
The lowest temperature ever recorded was minus 89 degrees Celsius.
3.
In 2030, the Football World Cup will be 100 years old.
4.
The closest distance between Earth and Mars is 55,680,000 kilometres.
5.
It is estimated that the world population in 2029 will be 8.2 billion.
6.
The speed of light is 300,000 kilometres per second.
7.
The population of Japan is 127 million.
8.
The world's largest shopping mall is 892,000 square metres.
9.
17% of British people are over 65.
10.
The largest crowd ever for a sporting event was 199,859.
Unit 10, Recording 3. 1.
Well, it's an interesting idea, but in my opinion, it isn't very likely to happen. Not by 2029. I mean, people like talking to other people. Who wants to talk to a machine? When I talk, I need someone to listen to me, to understand me, and to, I don't know, feel happy for me or sad for me. Machines may well sound like humans at some point in the future. They may even look like humans. But we're unlikely to have a cup of coffee and a chat with them. You know, they're just machines. So, no, I don't think that will happen. I could be wrong, of course, but I doubt it.
2.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, why not? Everything gets smaller and smaller. That's progress. Think about the first mobile phones. They were huge. Now they're tiny. You can have one in a watch. Cameras are the same. So, by 2029, I think they'll almost certainly be small enough to fit inside a human eye. They'll probably send all the images to a tiny hard disk somewhere in your pocket or on your clothes, and everything will be saved. We'll probably spend the second half of our lives looking at the pictures from the first half, you know, when we were young and healthy.
3.
By 2029? Are you joking? About half the world lives on less than $2 a day. 700 people die from hunger every hour. Not every day, every hour. 1.5 million people a year die from AIDS. The problems are huge. They're enormous. And this guy, Kurzweil thinks that everything is going to change by 2029? No way! Poverty probably won't disappear by 2099, so things definitely won't change by 2029.
4.
Yeah, actually, I think that probably will happen. I mean, I don't know when, but I think it's very likely that we'll have driverless cars one day. It seems quite logical to me. And it makes sense to have computers in cars that stop you from speeding or driving dangerously. It seems like a pretty good idea. So, yeah, it may well be the law one day that you have to have a computer in your car to control the speed or whatever.
5.
They'll do what? By 2029? No, I don't think so. You see, humans have new ideas, strong emotions, things like that. Robots don't. They're unlikely to ever write books or enjoy films or things like that. They don't want to be treated like us because robots don't have wants. Only humans have wants. Of course, I may well be wrong, but I think it's unlikely. I used to have a little Tamagotchi. Do you remember those? I kept it in my pocket and I had to remember to press some buttons sometimes to feed it. And if I forgot, it would beep a lot and then die. It was a present. Such a stupid thing. Mine died after 2 days. I wasn't sad at all. Anyway, it pretended it was alive, but it wasn't. It was just a machine.
Unit 10, Recording 4.
Society today is changing faster than at any time in the past. Young adults today, with their mobile phones, their online world and their social networks, live in a completely different world to their parents and grandparents. And it isn't only the technology that has changed. Over the last 50 years, life expectancy has increased dramatically. Teenagers in modern Japan, for example, can expect to live to over 80. 50 years ago, life expectancy was 65. And people in most countries have more money to spend. Over the last 50 years, average income in a country like the USA has risen 300%, and that's in today's money. That's a huge increase. And despite what people often think, free time has gone up too. Not only that, but things like healthcare and education have got much better. So we have a longer life and more free time in which we can buy more things. And let's face it, there is a lot more to buy these days. So here's the big question that experts have been asking for years. If our living standards have improved so much, why have our levels of happiness stayed the same? Why is our happiness not increasing with our income and our free time?
Unit 10, Recording 5.
50 years ago in Britain, 52% of people said they were very happy. Today, just 36% say the same thing. One of the reasons that we aren't happier might be that there is less trust in society. In the 1960s in Britain, 60% of adults said that they believed most people could be trusted. Today, that figure is around 30%. Another reason might be that societies are becoming less equal. The gap between the very rich and poorest in our society is bigger than ever before. And the more equal a society is, the happier the people are. So, is this problem going to change in the future? Can technology help us, or is technology making the problem worse? Well, the statistics show that in the last 50 years...
Unit 10, Recording 6. 1.
A decrease. To decrease. Decreasing.
2.
The economy. Economic.
3.
Education. To educate. Educational.
4.
Equality. Equal.
5.
An improvement. To improve.
6.
An increase. To increase.
Unit 10, Recording 7. 1.
If you had the opportunity, would you listen to what other people said about you behind your back?
I don't think so. I'd be too worried about what I might hear.
2.
Would you ever steal money, if no one could find out?
No, I'd never steal money. Even if no one knew, I'd feel guilty.
3.
If someone did something really unkind to you, would you take revenge?
I don't think so. I'd try to forget about it and focus on other things.
If someone was really horrible to one of my family, I might do something horrible back to them.
4.
If you were suspicious of your partner, would you ever follow him?
No, I think that would be a really stupid thing to do. If I thought he was doing something wrong, I'd ask him about it.
5.
Would you ever travel first class without a ticket?
I'm a real coward, so no, I wouldn't dare. If someone caught me, I'd feel so embarrassed.
Unit 10, Recording 8. 1.
I'll probably travel a lot.
2.
I think I'd probably have several different careers.
3.
I'd invent one that could tidy my flat.
4.
I think I'll probably go camping.
5.
I'll probably move out of the city centre.
6.
I'd live somewhere hot and beautiful.
7.
I'd definitely give up work.
8.
I'll buy a new car, probably.
Unit 10, Recording 9. 1.
I am a hotel owner from the north of Picolia, and I am really worried about the economy of our island. Businesses just aren't making enough money, and the government is not doing enough to help us. They haven't put enough money into promoting tourism in particular, in my opinion. If we have more tourists, then we'll have more businesses, and if there are more businesses, there will be more jobs and everyone will be able to pay more taxes. Then we'll be able to improve schools and hospitals. But first, we have to develop business. I'd suggest that we spend more on promoting tourism, and we really must have the new airport that they are talking about in the north of the country. This is really important for local businesses.
2.
I'm a teacher, and to me the biggest problem is the state of our schools. Classrooms are getting really old. We don't have enough books, and we need computers if we want to train young people for the modern world. It's really important, in my opinion. Young people are the future of our country, after all. But at the same time, we cannot reduce spending on hospitals or the army, because these things are very important too. I think the government should increase taxes on wealthy people to pay for improvements to our schools. There are plenty of rich people in Peak Oilia, and they don't pay very high taxes, so they can afford it.
3.
For me, there are two big problems: unemployment and defence. I feel really worried for our young people. It's getting more and more difficult to find a job, and I just don't know what they can do. I feel really sorry for them. At the same time, I think we have a big problem with our neighbour Expandia. I really believe that they want to attack us, and they're just waiting for an opportunity. So I think the government should increase spending on defence and increase the army to, say, 5,000 soldiers. This would help to solve two problems. It would make the country more secure against our neighbours, and it would give young people jobs and useful training. It would give them something to do and a focus for their lives. Of course, the problem is, where does the money come from? I don't have an answer to that.
4.
The best option is to reduce taxes on ordinary people. I'm a mother of a young family. My husband and I both work, but we just don't have enough money to live. Everything is so expensive these days. We want to be able to buy clothes for our children and have a better standard of living generally, but it's just not possible. And I don't think the government needs to spend all this money on hotels and golf courses and things. That's all for rich tourists. The government should help ordinary people like me. Now, that would be popular.
Unit 11, Recording 1. 1.
One thing that really annoys me is when there are parks and open spaces and they have signs saying no ball games. I mean, everyone complains about children these days not getting enough exercise and hanging around on street corners and things. But then they don't allow them to play anywhere or do anything. Kids should have the right to play in public places. Otherwise, they're going to get into trouble, aren't they?
2.
One thing that really annoys me is speed cameras on motorways. I mean, everyone breaks the law on motorways, don't they? I don't even think speeding on motorways is really dangerous. I think the police should be really tough on people who speed in towns and cities, because obviously that can be dangerous. But speed cameras and speeding fines on motorways are just a way for the government to make money, aren't they? Why don't the police spend their time catching real criminals instead?
3.
One rule that really annoys me is that you always have to tick the box to say that you've read the terms and conditions on a website. If you want to buy something or, I don't know, become a member of something, then you've got to tick that box, and you're not allowed to continue if you don't tick the box. And that's really unfair. And there are usually about 100 pages of terms and conditions. I mean, who reads all of that? I know I should read it, but I don't. And I don't think anyone does. And anyway, even if I did read it, I wouldn't be able to understand it. It's crazy. It really annoys me.
4.
I think it's really unfair that mobile phones are banned in class and even in some restaurants and places. I mean,
I know it's illegal to use your phone when you're driving or something like that, and that's perfectly reasonable because obviously it's dangerous. But there's no point in banning phones in schools. They're part of everyone's life now, and everyone looks at their phone if they quickly want to get some information on the internet or whatever. Okay, maybe there should be rules about what you can and can't do with your phone. I mean, obviously you shouldn't be allowed to have a phone conversation in the middle of a lesson, but it's not fair to actually ban phones.
5.
One thing that really annoys me is having to show ID to go into nightclubs and bars. I'm 23 and I still have to show ID to prove that I'm over 18. It's ridiculous. People say I ought to be pleased that I look young, but I'm not. It drives me mad.
Unit 11, Recording 2. 1.
Aren't allowed to. The public aren't allowed to. The public aren't allowed to come in here.
2.
Are allowed to. Cyclists are allowed to. Cyclists are allowed to use this path.
3.
Don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to cycle on this path. Are allowed to. You're allowed to. You're allowed to walk if you prefer.
4.
Have to. You have to. You have to show your passport or identity card. Should. You should. You should have them ready.
5.
Ought to. You ought to. You ought to be careful walking here.
6.
Mustn't. You mustn't. You mustn't wear a hat or a hoodie. Should. You should. You should remove them before entering.
Unit 11, Recording 3. 1.
I think it should be compulsory to have a trial license, the ones you get for motorcycles. Normally, when you have a motorcycle license, you get a trial license, and after about 2 years, you can convert it to a real license. I think that should be implemented for cars as well. Cars are more dangerous than motorcycles, I think. And a lot of people don't really know how to drive properly, especially when they've just gotten their license. Before you get your full license, you have to do an extra test. I think the driving test is thorough enough, but people need a lot more practice before they're actually ready to go out on the roads. And that second test should be able to prove that a person is a competent driver. And I think that should be a law.
2.
I'm going to talk about hunting and hunting laws, and my opinion about hunting, basically. You know, I'm not against hunting. I am against hunting for sport, though. I think there's a big, big difference. You know, people traditionally have needed to hunt to eat and to live. And to me, that's fine. What I don't agree with is hunting for sport, because I don't see the pleasure in going and killing an innocent, beautiful creature just for the sake of killing it. To me, that doesn't make sense. I mean, you would hope that people would use the meat and, you know, they would do something with the animal. But unfortunately, a lot of the time, people don't. They just kill the animal and that's it. So I don't think it should be banned, but it needs to be controlled. And I also think that it would be better if people didn't hunt for sport and they just hunted to sustain themselves and to use the food.
3.
I'd make it a law that if you go and live in a foreign country, it should be compulsory to learn the language of that country. I think that otherwise, if you don't speak the same language as the people around you, you're never going to be able to integrate into society. I lived in Brussels before, where the language is either French or Dutch. And I had a good bit of French, which I found really helpful. People always found it much nicer when you went into a shop or into a restaurant and you were able to make an effort to speak in their language. It's also a much better way to get to know the country that you're living in. It helps you be a bit part of it more if you can actually communicate with the people and make friends with those people. I think that's probably the most important part about it.
4.
I think there should be a law that if you're fit and able and you've been unemployed for, say, 6 months or more and you're receiving money from the government to help you, you should have to do some kind of voluntary work. There are lots of projects that I'm sure aren't being done because there isn't the money or there aren't the people to do the jobs. So if you're out of work, then why not do something constructive to help society and your local community? The sort of things that could be done are, for example, fixing up local community centres or painting churches, doing work on local schools to make them better places for learning. I think if people did that, did some kind of work or helping the community, it would get them used to the routine of working. It would make it easier for them to get back into work when they eventually find a job.
Unit 12, Recording 1. 1.
Could have. Could have. Couldn't have. Couldn't have.
2.
Should have. Should have. Shouldn't have. Shouldn't have.
3.
Would have. Would have. Wouldn't have. Wouldn't have.
Unit 12, Recording 2. 1.
I could have helped you.
2.
He should have scored.
3.
She shouldn't have done that.
4.
I would have said goodbye.
Unit 12, Recording 3.
Andrew, who was 35, was an experienced rower who had won international competitions. However, Deborah, who was 27 and a physical education teacher, had only learnt to row the year before the competition. But she soon found she enjoyed life on board the tiny 7-metre boat. From early on, however, it was clear that Andrew was suffering from acute anxiety and had developed a phobia for the ocean, something he had never experienced before. At first, Deborah and Andrew tried to overcome this, and they continued their journey. Then one day, the boat was caught in a violent storm. Deborah found Andrew in the cabin, shaking with fear and unable to even talk to her. It was clear that Andrew could not continue. With the nearest rescue boat 5 days away, Deborah and Andrew had to make the toughest decision of their lives. Should Deborah abandon the race in order to return home with her husband, or continue to Barbados, knowing that she would have to face the dangers of the Atlantic alone?
Unit 12, Recording 4.
At this stage, Deborah could easily have given up and gone back to England with her husband. But she passionately believed she could complete the journey alone and become only the 10th woman ever to cross the Atlantic by rowing boat. Andrew supported her 100% in her decision. They spent the 5 days needed for the rescue vessel to reach their boat, preparing for Deborah's solo journey. When Andrew finally departed, she wrote in her diary, "I couldn't help thinking that if anything went wrong, we might never see each other again." Once she was alone, Deborah could only sleep for short periods, due to the danger of a collision with the huge oil tankers, which would have sunk a tiny boat like hers. Sharks and extreme weather conditions added to the dangers. Apart from the physical problems, Deborah suffered from severe loneliness, particularly around Christmas, after more than 3 months at sea on her own. The only human contact she had, apart from messages of advice and support from her husband, was on day 74 of the journey, when she unexpectedly met a yacht called Seventh Heaven. The people on board gave her a loaf of fresh bread, some biscuits, and, more importantly, she says, 10 minutes of talking face to face with some other human beings. However, finally, after 113 days at sea, Deborah rowed into Port St. Charles, Barbados. Journalists and TV cameras were there to meet her, and her husband was among the crowd of people waiting with bottles of champagne. The official winners of the race had arrived 70 days earlier, but for the media and the public, Deborah was the true winner. The Queen even rewarded her courage with a special honour and made Deborah an MBE, Member of the British Empire. However, although Deborah and Andrew always supported each other's decision, they divorced soon after the race, and Deborah has remarried. She now has a successful career as a motivational speaker.
Unit 12, Recording 5. 1.
If Andrew had known about his phobia, he wouldn't have entered the race.
2.
If Andrew had stayed on the boat, his phobia would have got worse.
3.
If Deborah's boat had hit an oil tanker, it would have sunk.
4.
If they had continued the race together, the couple might still be married now.
5.
If Deborah hadn't had this experience, she wouldn't be a successful motivational speaker now.
Unit 12, Recording 6. Erin.
I had worked really hard ever since leaving university. I worked for a big travel company, and by the age of 30, I had reached the position of company director, which was really something for a woman of my age. I spent my whole life travelling the world. It was a great job. When I had my first baby, I decided to go back to work and leave the baby with a nanny. But after a couple of months, I just hated it. I hated leaving her. I just couldn't do it anymore. So in the end, I decided to give up my job and become a full-time mother, and that's what I've been doing ever since. I've got 2 children now, and of course we've got far less money than before, but I've never regretted it for a moment. The last few years have been absolutely great.
Kieran.
I always dreamed of being a professional footballer. I just wanted to play all the time, and I was doing pretty well. I got a place in the junior team of a big football club. Then, when I was 19, I broke my leg really badly and couldn't play for about 6 months. I tried to return, but I had lots of problems with my leg, and I realised that I would never be able to play for a big club again. I had offers to play for small clubs, but that wasn't what I wanted. So I decided to give up my career and retrain as a coach, and that's what I've done. Mind you, this is definitely second best. I'd rather be a player.
Margot.
I met Nikos while I was on holiday in Greece. It was a typical holiday romance, I suppose, except that we really, really liked each other. So basically, after I came home, Nikos followed me back to England and persuaded me to go and live with him in Greece. I never thought I could leave my family and my friends and my job as a nurse and everything. But that's what I did, and here I am. We run a restaurant together on this beautiful island, and basically it's all worked out really well.
Copyright Pearson Education Limited, 2013.